What do you lads think of Michael Spinks as a fighter? Beat Cooney, Holmes twice, Qawi, Eddie Gregory, Marvin Johnson, and many more, but you rarely hear his name mentioned with other great fighters of the same era. Steve.
Yes, well, I will caveat this first of all by saying this was before my time. It was before all of our time, so I'm only looking back at it with hindsight. Obviously, my overriding thoughts about Spinks was him getting knocked out by Tyson, and he never fought again. And of course, there was the first Holmes fight, controversial. Holmes was there on the verge of breaking Marciano's record, and Spinks managed to get the win. I was a big fan of Dwight Mohammed Carway. Eddie Gregory, who went on to become Eddie Mustafa Mohammed. I love that era. Regular listeners of this show will know that Matthew Saad Mohammed was my favourite. Probably slightly before Spinks. He beat Marvin Johnson twice. Spinks beat Johnson as well. But Spinks will clearly punch. The fact that he knocked out Cooney up at heavyweight, he got some good knockout wins up at heavyweight as well. He was definitely a banger. Stylistically, I was never the biggest fan of him. I thought he had a really awkward style. Like he was kind of disjointed almost. He leapt in with that left hand, that left jab, that left hook, and that led to like being Andy's put bad knees. I didn't realise that actually Andy, so that kind of fits in there. A lot of awkward exchanges, a lot of tying up and grappling. I remember it was either the first or the second Holmes fight. It was awkward. The referee was having to break them up all the time. And bad knees makes absolute sense. Very stiff, kind of leggy. Like he was leaning over his knees. His ankles, I was going to say, weren't quite there. But I mean, he was very effective, very awkward, very effective. Could clearly punch. From a fighting family, you got Leon, Corey came after him. Look at those names there: Cooney, Holmes, Carway, Gregory, Johnson. You ain't a bad fighter if you're beating the guys of that caliber. Lineal champion as well. Moved up from light heavyweight to heavyweight. Had a good career, made some money. Joe Kennedy's right. Why don't we mention Michael Spinks more of a fighter? As a fighter, hopefully he's got his just due tonight on the asylum.
Andy, who do you think was the best Spinks
Oh,
that was a professional fighter?
Michael, mate, without
All
doubt.
right.
The other one was just a waster, but although he achieved great things, I must admit.
Corey is underrated, though. Corey,
Corey, aye.
he was not good on the eye, but he's got a really strong resume when you're talking
Yeah.
about early 2000s, around 147, 154.
When you talk about the light heavyweight division, historically anyway, it's no one that gets a lot of love as such because it was always classed before, like the original eight weight divisions. It was always classed as like the fucking, the playground before you can move up to heavyweight. It was unheard of really that many light heavyweights went up and won the heavyweight title. But Spinks was, as Steve says, he was tall, he boxed well enough, and he carried a very, very strong punch, good jab. No many, I also agree with Steve, no many of his fights actually were great to watch, but as I says, when they put it together, he was fantastic. This was a guy who was like, trained by Eddie Futch, by the way, so one of the great teachers of the sport. And that era as well, at light heavyweight, you've got, as you said, you got fucking Murray Sutherland, you had Dwight Mohammed Calwe's been mentioned, Eddie Davis I'm sure he was there, Jerry Celestine, who'd been round the block with a few guys, the great Matthew Saad Mohammed. No much can be, nothing else can be said about that guy. He needs a movie made about him. He's got that type of life story. Look, he was a good fighter. He got, I would say, his last fight that I watched, in recent terms, would be Larry Holmes. I need to go and see if I've got the scorecard somewhere on my office, but I've got them somewhere. But I'm sure it was one of those fights where I had possibly Holmes winning I think I might have had Holmes winning the first fight, and then Spinks winning the second fight, possibly. I'm sure I had the rematch, and you just saw the fear in his eyes, man. The night he fought Tyson. Tyson was just at that point was just a killer machine. Just to qualify the bad knees comment, if you look at some of his fights, you will see him wearing knee sleeves or knee braces. I'm sure he maybe had both knees tied up that night against Tyson. Actually, it seemed it was 87 seconds. Well, he did the right thing, I suppose. That man.
That was Pete Tyson, wasn't it?
It's just like Yuri Foreman, man. Poor sons of bitches.
It was one of those. It was one of those punches you actually never saw land. It was so quick, so devastating. You're like, where did that? Because Spinks had his back to the camera at the time. You're like, where the fuck did that land? But yeah, look, you just saw it. But look, he was a very, very, very talented fighter. Just wasn't easy to watch sometimes, shall I say. And that's maybe the reason why he doesn't get as much love as some of the greats usually do.
There you go. So thank you so much for the question there, Mr. Kennedy. We appreciate you, sir.
Matty, for the audio listeners, can I just read out that comment from
Sure,
Des that you put
sure.
on there? Yeah, Des boxed to a good standard. He put up on the comments here in case anybody can't see it. Eddie Gregory trained me at the Peacock for a while. Absolute gentleman he was. Spinks was an amazing fighter, so was his brother. Both lunatics and real roughhouses. So I thought that was worth mentioning.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
remember a story with his brother actually. It was it Butch Lewis, was his manager, and he was like saying to him, look, you find him lying sleeping in his bed when he should be doing road work. And Butch Lewis was like, right, okay, fuck it, I'm done with you. I'm walking, I'm leaving, I'm away. And apparently he comes running after him. Butch, he's trying to get his fucking his sweatsuit. And Butch, I'm going to start running, I'm going to start training, I'm going to start this. So you say absolute madman. It was one thing I always remember about his career, at least, was when he fought Dwight Muhammad Qawi, and he's trying to hook fucking Qawi in the face with like 4 or 5 hooks, and he just keeps pulling his chin back. It's one of those great moments in fucking history that he just leaves his chin in the air there to get tagged. He's like, nah, you can't touch me, cannot touch me. So Qawi was another favourite back in that was bitching that era, man. 1975 up to about the mid 80s. Light heavyweight, cruiserweight, it was just fucking bitching with great
Yeah,
talent.
Yaki Lopez, didn't you? John
Yep.
Conte, all them boys.
Yep. John Conte, ex-champion as well, mate.
Qawi was class because he was so small, wasn't he? We've done punches from the past before. He was like 5'7". The Camden
Finnegan.
He had long ass arms for his height, though.
Oh, he did, yeah. He was a great fighter, Qawi.
I know many come out of federal prison by the way and become official, legit world champions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some stories there. Ron Lyle fucking went to prison in Denver, Colorado.
We covered Ron Lyle as well.
Covered Ron Lyle as well. He was a bad man, by the way.
He was, dude.
He could have been anything, he could have been a basketball player, NFL player. Just got caught up in the wrong company and fucking shanking people. I think is.
This old guy that used to play some golf with, his name was Louis, and he used to do a little bit of,
for your neck of the woods as well, eh?
Hold on, it's so Louis used to do a little bit of training, like amateurs and some pro, more just assistant in Denver around like the 70s and 80s. So he knew Ron Lyle when he came out of the Canada. He was trained around there, and he said he was a straight asshole. But he said he's like a kid would come up to him for an autograph or something. He's like that. Be like, nah, man, get the fuck away from me. But he said like if a woman would approach him or something like that, he'd be like, yeah, baby, I can do that for you. No problem.
Well, he's been stuck in federal prison for the best part of 10 years. What do you expect him to do, man? He's trying to make up for lost time, isn't he?
Had to try to catch up with Wilt Chamberlain somehow.
He couldn't catch a break, could he, Ron? He was from the projects in prison. Even after his retirement, he got caught up in a couple of murders, didn't he? Had to spend all of his time trying to fight them off. You remember he's like a bouncer, wasn't he? I think in Las Vegas or something. Just couldn't catch a break, man.
I think one of his mates for his prison days had come to visit him, and I think they ended up killing him or something, or shooting him in self-defense or something like that. Something wild.
I actually think, God, who was it? Was it? No, God, it was. I think it was Jim Brown, the football player, the movie Mars Attacks. I think that his character was modeled off of Ron Lyle, because remember he was the greeter dressed up like a fucking Spartan or some shit like that.
There you go.
And I don't eat pork. Really? You don't eat pork?
Ron Lyle was involved in the greatest stare down in history, in my opinion. But that fucking George Foreman stare down is epic. Fucking Howard Cosell's literally going to fucking orgasm in his pants, man. He's like, look at this.
Well, I'm sure you guys have done that punches from the past.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
that fight didn't fail from fucking stare down all the way to the fight itself. I mean, that fight was exactly
violence
as it was.
Personified. That's what that was, mate.
Well, and putting down Big George like that, and not an exhausted Big George, a full tank Big George. Fuck me. That's no joke.
He could look like he could drop like a bag of cement out of a fucking 3-story window, man, the way you hit the fucking canvas. Fuck me.
God, I'm just loose on my 70s heavyweight boxing. Did Ron Lyle ever fight Ernie Shavers?
I think he might have, mate. Give me a second, I'll just double check that. But I remember fighting Ali as well. Ali had him rocking all over the place.
Yeah, he knocked out Shavers in 75 before the Foreman fight. The fight before.
There you go.
And this was the Foreman Lyle fight was Foreman's first fight back after losing to Ali, wasn't it?
Yep, that's right.
Talk about
That's
going in at the
crazy.
deep end. George showed some balls after losing to Ali and then going in against Lyle, getting hurt, getting dropped. Or I tell you what, he showed some balls. I think George.
The other thing as well is, I mean, he'd actually even coming up as a pro, Lyle, although he started late. I mean, look at the names he fucking fought: Buster Mathis, right? Gregorio Peralta, who'd been in with Foreman as well. I think he might have fought him twice. Jurgen Blin, who I'm sure Ali fought, and you then got
Yeah, he
Oscar
did, yeah.
Bonavina, who was not a fucking easy night's work for anybody. I
Fought
think he even
Frazier, didn't they?
fought Frazier, fought Ali, fought them all. Jimmy Ellis, Jimmy Young, he lost to him. Jimmy Young was never an easy night's fight. I think did Jimmy Young no beat Foreman, or was it, I think it was somebody else at this point.
He beat somebody of note
He
because,
did. He
like I
beat
said,
Foreman.
I'm loose on that era.
Didn't he
and I'm
beat
like, I
Foreman?
know
That
Jimmy
Foreman
Young.
retired.
That was the night
Was
that
that Young?
Foreman met God for the first time. That's what it was. It was who was in his corner? Who was the great Gil Clancy was in Foreman's corner that night, and he says Jesus came to meet him in the change room. Apparently, he says it wasn't that. He says it was just dehydration and fucking hallucination. But George met the beardy man that night, and ever since then he went away for what was it 10, 20 years, whatever it was, and
I
become an
think
ordained minister.
he came
Yep.
back in '88, and he came back to raise money for
Yep, for the
his
church.
church.
Yep.
Yeah. His
And
comeback, I still think that George Foreman's comeback is one of the most amazing feats in sports. As far as like, if you think like boxing and age, Foreman's comeback, Bernard Hopkins' career in his 40s, Archie Moore, like that shit's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.